Ekongkaar Khalsa, Ki Fateh. My name is Gursan Singh, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing evidence of how the Yogi Bhajan Tantric Kundalini yogis are distorting, twisting Sikh scriptures, and also how they are creating a false history of Sikhi in order to make profit. I'll be showing how top people in their organization, this Yogi Bhajan organization, are using and appropriating Sikhi in order to profit and increase their status, if you will, in the Kundalini Yogi community. Now, recently there's been a lot of discussion at a Kundalini Yoga teachers group on Facebook. There's been many Sikhs, traditional Sikhs as I call them, who follow the Sikh Maryada, and they've been posting and discussing with many of the Kundalini Yoga teachers and students in this group. Now, one of the top writers and persons over there at the Yogi Bhajan Dera is Ekongkaar Khalsa. She is a top writer at SikhNet, which is one of the Yogi Bhajan organizations. Probably many of you have heard about it. So she's been posting there these posts about Sikh history, which are, quite frankly, a false narrative in order to fit the agenda of the Tantric Kundalini yogis. So in this video, I want to go through and read some of her posts, discuss them, and then also read some of the replies and responses from Sikhs who, for lack of a better word, we'll call them Orthodox or traditional Sikhs, who follow the Sikh Maryada. So, Ekongkaar Khalsa says, she says, "To my dear Kundalini Yoga teachers, it is unfortunate that this group is becoming a playground for people who wear turbans and have Sikh names, but who have lost their sense of Sikh history." So right there, it shows you how she has this kind of elitist attitude towards Sikhs who have been, who are from the Punjab, or that are traditional Sikhs, Sikh Maryada Sikhs, we'll say. And this, I have to add that this was a very prevalent attitude that I observed when I was in the 3HO organization. Many of you may know that I was part of the Yogi Bhajan group for some 30 years. And there was a lot of elitism, arrogance, and just plain racism towards Sikhs from the Punjab. This was very typical, to be honest. Anyway, so after kind of insulting traditional Sikhs, she goes on to say, these people, talking about these traditional Sikhs, are also spreading misinformation about the connection between yoga and the gurus. Let's be clear, she says. Guru Nanak was a yogi himself. He did not like the yogic culture that kept the wisdom of yoga away from the common people. She says, Baba Siri Chand was trained in yoga by his own father, Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak gave Baba Siri Chand the job to correct the yogis of this day. All right. So, what we want to do is, piece by piece, we want to take apart what she's saying here and refute her argument about how Guru Nanak, she says, is a yogi. All right. So, let's look at first at the rest of her comments, and then we'll go through these, like I say, point by point, and show why Guru Nanak was not a yogi. All right, and that this nonsense about Siri Chand is really just a made-up thing, you know, for them to make money, essentially, and create a lineage for Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga. Okay, so Ekongkaar Khalsa goes on to say, there are people who distort the past. And again, she's kind of insulting Sikhs from the Punjab. They do not know what they are talking about, and many are innocent in having been misled by their elders on these topics. Bless them, she says. Pretty elitist in my mind. They are also the Guru's sons and daughters. And when the time is right, they will remember their history and origin. Okay, there's really no comment I have. I mean, you can see that she's pretty arrogant about this whole thing. And then she says, here are some articles based on Yogi Bhajan's teachings related to the issue of the connection between yoga and Sikh Dharma. And there are other historical records as well for your kind enlightenment. And she gives a link to the Sikh Dharma Yogi Bhajan website. So nowhere does she really give any other documents or history that would confirm her assertions that Guru Nanak was a yogi. So let's go to some more of these comments. Oh, first I want to point out, this is really important. And by the way, I'll have all of these screenshots of all of these comments and documents just after I speak in this video, so you can review them. I'm looking here at an abridged organizational chart. This was an organizational chart for all the Yogi Bhajan profits and non-profit organizations. So SikhNet is here. Then you've got the Kundalini Research Institute. You've got Sikh Dharma International. You've got then some profit ones, Yogi Tea, they do Occult Security. These are all for-profit. Anyway, my point here is they're all tied in. The Kundalini Research Institute, they have teacher training where they charge thousands and thousands of dollars. I have gotten letters from many people who are very disappointed with the Kundalini Research Institute training courses that have spent $10,000 or more on these. They have level 2, level 1, 2, 3, 4, unto infinity, if you will, of these teacher trainings. And so it's a big money-making thing. So SikhNet is kind of like a mouthpiece for the Sikh community, and also I think many of the KY teachers and students, they look to SikhNet to find out about Sikhi. So when this Ekongkaar Khalsa, who's the top writer over there at SikhNet, publishes something like this, where she says that Guru Nanak is a yogi, of course the people who are donating to SikhNet and looking to SikhNet for advice on Sikhi are going to see that and say, oh, hey, wow, that's Kundalini Yoga is tied in with Sikhi and is part of Sikhi. Well, which obviously couldn't be farther from the truth. So this gives Yogi Bhajan's Tantric and Kundalini Yoga a lineage, which otherwise it wouldn't have. Because there's been, and I will go into this later, there's been studies done, academic studies that show that basically Yogi Bhajan made all this stuff up, this Kundalini Yoga and Tantric Yoga. So if Ekongkaar Khalsa and these leaders over there, over at SikhNet, can make a false history, then they can pull people in and say, hey, we have a lineage that's thousands of years old. It's an ancient secret. It was Guru Nanak who started this, and then Guru Nanak taught his son Sri Chand, and then it was passed on to Guru Ram Das Ji, the fourth Sikh Guru. So this is the narrative that the Yogi Bhajan people want to promote and spread, because that gets people hooked in to their Kundalini Yoga teacher training, spending thousands of dollars, donating, because the Kundalini Yogis think that this is an ancient secret that was only given to Yogi Bhajan. Now, I can definitely verify from the time that I was in 3HO, this is what Yogi Bhajan taught, and this is what I believed along with everybody else in 3HO, that the Sikhs in India, or the Sikhs in the Punjab, were never given this secret information about Kundalini and Tantric yoga, and that Yogi Bhajan was the only one who received this secret information. This is what was taught and is still taught in these Kundalini yoga teacher training courses. So everybody should be aware of that. And I challenge Ekongkaar Khalsa and all of these people at the Yogi Bhajan place, come up with any proof, anybody, scholars, historians, that can show that there is a tie between Tantric Kundalini Yoga of Yogi Bhajan and Sikhi. It just doesn't exist. Anyway, we'll talk more about this. And be sure to look at all these charts and documents here. They're very interesting. Now, the next thing I want to point out is how Ekongkaar Khalsa, again, she's a top writer over there at SikhNet, is paid quite handsomely for her efforts. I'm looking here at a return of organization exempt from income tax. This is a nonprofit income tax return that is available on the internet. It's a publicly available, and it shows their return, SikhNet's return. And she is here listed as number 5 person who's paid by SikhNet, and she gets $46,180 a year, and it appears for only 10 hours a week of work, because it's under this heading. It says hours per week, list any hours for related organizations below dotted line. So 10 hours a week, she gets $46,000 a year. That's a pretty handsome compensation for spreading this propaganda, if you will. And so you can see where Ekongkaar Khalsa has a vested interest in selling Kundalini Yoga, because donations come in from KY students, donations come in from Sikhs who would be sympathetic to Yogi Bhajan's teachings and really don't know the true history of Yogi Bhajan and his KY and his Tantric yoga. I'll also mention that the other people being paid there at SikhNet are Garuka Singh, lists here 20 hours a week, $77,058 per year. Gurmustic gets $86,597 a year for 25 hours a week of work. And then they've got a Guru Amrit Singh Khalsa. Doesn't look like he's paid. There's Surpreet Singh Manchanda. He was the chairperson here over at SikhNet, it looks like. Doesn't look like he gets anything. But you've got some pretty hefty compensation there paid to these people there who are the top leaders over there at SikhNet. And Garuka and Gurmustic, they travel all around and spread these same false narratives of Sikhi in order to get more donations, because it makes them look good, basically. Okay, so let's move on here. Now, Ekongkaar Khalsa goes on to say, there are references here and there in different history books. This is what her commenter said. For instance, the history about Baba Sri Chand asking Guru Hargobind for one of his sons to succeed him is retold briefly in the biography of Guru Teg Bahadur, written by Dr. Shailesh Singh and published in 1967. If you go to the store at gobindsadhan.org, you will see one publication titled Seminar Papers on Baba Sri Chandji. Okay, so this brings in to a figure, this Baba Versa Singh. And this is his Gobind Sadhan, was his ashram, or is his ashram. He's no longer alive. But this is the history of 3HL. This Baba Versa Singh, he was a disciple of Sri Chand, or I guess he promoted Baba Sri Chand and followed Sri Chand's teachings. This is the son of Guru Nanak. So we'll talk about that history and how Yogi Bhajan had a falling out with this Baba Versa Singh. And so, because Baba Versa Singh didn't do any yoga, and Yogi Bhajan knew that Kundalini Yoga would sell to the hippies and everybody in the US. This is back in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, so it says here, Ekongkaar Khalsa says, you have to go back 30 to 50 years or more to find it in these older history books. Yet the references are there. Remember much of this oral tradition from pre-partition. This is oral tradition from pre-partition. Yogi Bhajan studied with a Kundalini Yoga master who was also a Sikh, Sant Hazara Singh. Okay, so there's no evidence of this Sant Hazara Singh ever existing. And we'll go through this as well. There was a great academic study done by Philip Deslepi, we'll talk about here also. It showed that Sant Hazara, there's really no evidence that Sant Hazara Singh ever existed. And these other oral traditions that Ekongkaar Khalsa speaks about are only brought forward from the mouth of Yogi Bhajan, basically. There's no one else who really, I've never seen any evidence of it. Ekongkaar Khalsa conveniently says here, she says, partition destroyed a lot of memory in many ways. Yogi Bhajan is a memory holder, she says. So the stories or practices did not get lost. So isn't that convenient that Yogi Bhajan is the one who holds the memory of these stories, supposedly. He's the only one, essentially. Okay, let's move on here. And we'll show how we can dispute these assertions and assumptions by Ekongkaar Khalsa and the top people over there, SikhNet and 3HO organizations. Now, this was very interesting. Yogi Bhajan's son, his name is Ranbir Bai, and I knew him very well. This was back in the early 1980s when I lived in Los Angeles. In fact, I even rented a cottage in back of Ranbir's house on Pickford Road. So I know Ranbir pretty well. We haven't spoken since I left 3HO. But he's posted here, very interesting comment. He's talking to Ekongkaar Khalsa and he says, I appreciate your efforts to promote Kundalini Yoga. I do strongly object to your so-called facts, he says. And this is, keep in mind, this is Yogi Bhajan's oldest son, Ranbir. He says, you propose no facts. SikhNet has no standing as to a source for Sikh history and scholarly fact-finding basis, he says. Now, and again, I have this screenshot of this here so you can all see this. Patanjali exclusively does not promote Kundalini Yoga, instead a yogic lifestyle and philosophy, which is solely based on Sanatana or Vedic Hindu religious structure based on Rishi Manu's dictates from his writings called Manu Smritis, Google and Learn. In the West, Yogi Bhajan introduced Kundalini Yoga when he arrived in 1968 to teach in Toronto. He learned it from Swami Dharandraya Brahmachari, who was a renowned yoga master of his time and well connected with Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. That's very true. There's pictures of Yogi Bhajan with Indira Gandhi, and that is a historical fact that Yogi Bhajan, he not only was a student of this Swami Dharandraya Brahmacharya, but also studied at the Shiv, says it here, the other Shiva ashram there in Rishikesh. I went there when I was visiting there. I went there and saw that ashram. He was studying there. So the point about this is that Yogi Bhajan studied these different yoga methods, and then he kind of made up his own version, essentially. And then what he did was he put Gurbani into some of the Kriyas, as he called them, and mixed Sikhi with the yoga, is what it essentially. But this, keep in mind, this is false history of Sikhi, incorporating Guru Nanak and Sri Chand and made them out to be yogis. And then eventually Guru Ram Das, and he called it a golden chain, in other words. Okay? Okay, so then he said, this Ranbir, he goes on to say, best I advise to all who are dialoguing here is to have KRI, that's Kundalini Research Institute, and SikhNet, declare their stand on issues like, was Guru Nanak a yogi, and provide facts to Kundalini yoga teachers for their logical conception and promote their knowledge to their students. Okay, so he's actually challenging SikhNet and Kundalini Research Institute to come up with some evidence and to correctly teach these naive and innocent Kundalini students. Now, the only thing that I can find, and that I've seen from other Sikhs concerning Sri Chand in Gurbani, that's from the city Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it says, Nanak's sons did not obey his word. They turned their backs on him as Guru. This is on 967, and it states that the sons of Nanak did not follow the path of their father, and that they turned his ear against the ambrosial path of Nanak, against Gurmat, against the Guru's way, and wandered along other paths. So they were not chosen as his successors or as teachers, or as teachers of Gurmat, but Bhai Lena was. And of course, Bhai Lena was Guru Angad Dev Ji, who eventually became the Guru after Guru Nanak. The Guru gave the true command, Gurbani says. Why should we hesitate to proclaim this? His sons, meaning Guru Nanak's sons, did not obey his word. They turned their backs on him as Guru. These evil-hearted ones became rebellious. They carry loads of sins on their backs. Whatever the Guru said, Lena did. That's Guru Angad Dev Ji. And so he was installed on the throne. That's Guru Angad Dev Ji. So this is the only place in Gurbani that speaks about Guru Nanak's sons, and it doesn't specifically refer to Sri Chand, but it's Guru Nanak's sons is the way it talks. So this idea that Sri Chand should be elevated to a position of importance in Sikhi is just, it's really a false narrative. But Yogi Bhajan used this as a convenience because Sri Chand kind of looked like a yogi. He was a celibate. He was an udasi. So he never did yoga. So let's look at some other evidence here. It's very interesting. Now, Ekongkaar Khalsa refers to Dr. Shalochan Singh having some evidence about Sri Chand. And she fails to actually give the transcripts of what Dr. Shalochan Singh says about Sri Chand. Because Dr. Shalochan Singh wrote many treatises, he wrote many papers, and one of them that really was an eye-opener for me was a paper that he wrote, an essay, if you will, book, more like saying. In 1977, he wrote this book, Sikhism and Tantric Yoga. He spent months with Yogi Bhajan and wrote a scathing critique of Yogi Bhajan and his Tantric Kundalini Yoga as it related to Sikhism. And like I said, he called it Tantric and Sikhism and Tantric Yoga, he called it. There's a chapter about the misrepresenting Sri Chand as Tantric Yogi in the book. And so I'll read you just part of that, where Dr. Shalochan Singh talks about Sri Chand. This is chapter 11, Misrepresenting Sri Chand as Tantric Yogi. Yogi Bhajan has made his American followers believe that Guru Nanak's eldest son, Sri Chand, was a yogi. Sri Chand was an udasi and never a yogi. No udasi ever practices yoga. When Guru Nanak went on his missionary journeys, he put on the dress of mendicants, without which it was impossible even to enter medieval holy places. Sri Chand was yet a little boy at that time. He got the impression that Guru Nanak had renounced household life, and so he prepared himself as an udasi, a recluse, ready to carry on his father's mission far and wide. He studied Sanskrit and Persian and lived in every way according to a Sikh because he was initiated into this faith by his father. He was never a yogi, and no udasi up till this day ever practices yoga. It was Guru Angad's son, Dada, who went away to learn and preach yogic asanas, and he was so quickly cut off from the mainstream of Sikh faith that he and his yogi followers were lost in oblivion and completely forgotten even by history. We would not even known anything about him and his followers, talking about Sri Chand, had not Bhai Gurdas just mentioned him in passing. This is what Bhai Gurdas says. And these are the vars of Bhai Gurdas, who's the accepted historian on the Sikh Gurus and Sikhi. Sri Chand chose to be a celibate from childhood, and he built Dera Baba Nanak and preached the Guru's teachings from there. Lakshmi Chand, second son of Guru Nanak, had a son named Dadam Chand, who became proud and vain. Guru Angad's son, Das, was given Manji, seat of missionary center. Dada went to some yogis and learnt yoga asanas and started teaching yoga to distinguish himself from the mainstream of Sikhism, as taught by the legitimate successor of his father. Bhai Gurdas further comments that people like Dada were like bamboos living close to the sandalwood trees. Every white and red sandalwood tree gives so much fragrance that all trees in the neighborhood became fragrant except bamboo, which is so lifeless and spiritless that it resists all fragrance. Bhai Gurdas compares Dada to this bamboo because he started learning yoga asanas just because he did not imbibe the fragrance of Sikhism. And then Dr. Srilochan Singh goes on to say, to justify the practice of yoga asanas and the other practices connected with it, the American Sikhs is told by Yogi Bhajan, and they assert day in and day out, that Sri Chand was a yogi and he practiced yoga asanas. That's exactly what Ekongkaar Khalsa is doing. And she's just mouthing what Yogi Bhajan taught, because Yogi Bhajan was teaching us all the time. I know, because I was there. He could never, talking about Sri Chand, because Bhai Gurdas tells us that he was a Baljeti, celibate from childhood. This is talking about Sri Chand. He could never in a dream think of tantric exercises, which according to Yogi Bhajan are all connected with sex energy. All his life he preached the teachings of Guru Nanak, and just before his death, during the time of the sixth Guru, when he was nearly 135 years old, he placed all his disciples under the leadership of Baba Guru Ditta, eldest son of the Guru, and thereafter the Dasis became a very orthodox missionary wing of Sikhism. And this movement has continued much more to the glory and greatness of Sikhism. So the Udasis are certainly a very well-respected group that supports Sikhism, but they're not yogis, okay? And it's interesting that Yogi Bhajan has created this false narrative. Now, I'm going to read some of these comments from other Sikhs here. This traditional Sikh says, and he's talking to Ekongkaar Khalsa, do you know Baba Versa Singh from Gobind Sadhan rejected Yogi Bhajan? Okay, so this gets into this history of 3HO, how I was talking about earlier, how Yogi Bhajan's first teacher was this Baba Versa Singh. Okay, so I'll read this here. It says, in 1968, Harbhajan Singh Khalsa, also known as Yogi Bhajan, introduced his own brand of Kundalini Yoga in the United States. Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan. And now this is actually a quotation from this academic study, Maharaj the Mahan Tantric, and by Philip Deslepi. Kundalini Yoga is taught by Yogi Bhajan. Yogi Bhajan founded the Healthy, Happy, Holy organization as teaching organization. Yogi Bhajan took yogic postures and techniques, attached them to tantric theories and Sikh mantras, synthesizing a new form of Kundalini Yoga. When placed alongside the teachings of Swami Dharendra Brahmachari and Maharaj Versa Singh, it becomes strikingly apparent that at least in its earliest years, Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga was not a distinct practice, but essentially a combination of yogic mechanics learned from the former and the Sikh-derived mantras, Ekongkaar, Satnam, Siddhi Waheguru, and chanting from the latter. Deslepi writes, Versa Singh rejected Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga. Yoga was not a part of the Gobind Sadhan spiritual path, and a power struggle ensued over who would win control of the new American followers. So what happened was Yogi Bhajan took a group of 80 disciples over to India, and this was in 1970, I believe. And they spent this time there at the Baba Versa Singh ashram. So Yogi Bhajan had a big falling out with Versa Singh, and all of a sudden, Versa Singh was no longer his teacher, and then you see incorporated this idea that Guru Ram Das Ji was now Yogi Bhajan's teacher, and Yogi Bhajan created this false narrative about this golden chain where Guru Nanak to Sri Chand and then Guru Ram Das eventually gave Yogi Bhajan this Kundalini Yoga to teach the world. So you can see how this false narrative progressed, because Baba Versa Singh did not teach yoga. He was an Adasi, and Yogi Bhajan knew, though, that Kundalini Yoga would sell in the West. He was a businessman, and he knew that this would be very popular. You could sell it and make a lot of money. So you can see eventually he made Yogi Tea, which makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year, all based on yoga. So he wouldn't have had these big businesses and a lot of money if he hadn't made up this false narrative. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, so I put here a screenshot of the from Maharaj the MAHAN Tantric, and it says here, this article details the influences upon the construction of Kundalini Yoga as introduced, taught, and propagated in the West by Yogi Bhajan. This is just kind of the intro of it. By delving into the lost history of the practice's earliest years through previously neglected sources such as its documentation in rare early texts and interviews with early students, associates, as opposed to the official history of Kundalini Yoga that claims it is an ancient and secret tradition prior to Yogi Bhajan's open teaching of it. This article argues that it was a bricolage created by Yogi Bhajan himself and derived from two main figures, a Hatha Yoga teacher named Swami Dharendra Brahmacharya and the Sikh Sant Maharaj Versa Singh. It is the aim of this article to provide clear evidence as to what Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga is and what it comprises, put forward the historical and cultural context in which it was developed and presented by Yogi Bhajan. Okay, so let's move on to some other comments. Now, there's a forum called the Wacko World of Yogi Bhajan, which I would recommend to people to visit. And there's a lot of discussion about this Maharaj the MAHAN Tantric article. This was back in 2013. I'll just read to you a couple of things they say. This was from a Rose Lotus who posted there. This article goes back and forth between what Yogi Bhajan taught and YB's claim, and what the author, through investigation, has discovered to be true. He exposes their lies, just like we have been doing here for years, but he does it much better, of course. First off, he establishes Versa Singh as one of YB's primary teachers, not the mythical Sant Hazara Singh. So, again, in this book, or in this academic study, Sant Hazara Singh is discredited, that he doesn't really exist. Philip Deslepi makes the point that if he was a really renowned teacher, he would be mentioned in some other places, but he's not. We already knew that, but he accesses important ex-YBers who were on the first India trip and interviews. So Philip Deslepi interviews many of the people who were on the first India trip that went to the Baba Versa Singh ashram and other former followers. The author also cites YB media and YB lectures, which he is obviously pored over. Basically, he uses all the standard methods of academic analysis to prove that YBism is based on lies. Sant Hazara Singh and this Lama Lima Pod are made up. Versa Singh and Swami Brahmacharya were the actual influences. Kundalini Yoga is not ancient. There is no lineage. Versa Singh influenced YB in dress, presentation, and role, and brought the Baba Sri Chand element to YBism and the mantra Ekongkaar Satnam Siddhi Waheguru. Swami Dharendra Brahmacharya Yoga had the moving up and down, back and forth, heavy breathing, breath of fire, stretch pose concepts. Okay, let's go some more here. Okay, so in the article Maharaj the MAHAN Tantric, the author says that Yogi Bhajan was planning on starting an import-export business, selling East Indian stuff to hippies. But the yoga market was booming, so he jumped on in. It was the 1970 when YB started rewriting his own history. He claimed Guru Ram Das as his personal guide. I was talking about that earlier. And he also made up stories about how he received dreams, visions of Guru Ram Das, and that how Guru Ram Das Ji gave him these secret yoga kriyas. And this Guru Singh has made up a completely nonsense comical video where he's on this back drop of the stars, and he talks about how Yogi Bhajan gave this secret mantra to how Guru Ram Das Ji gave this secret mantra to Yogi Bhajan. It's really funny, actually. Okay, so the July 1970 Beads of Truth mentioned the mythical Sant Hazara Singh for the first time. He also claimed to have been senior professor of yoga at Swami Daradharan Parameshwar Ashram. Oh, he was also at the Shivananda Ashram, too. That was the other ashram I was thinking about in Rishikesh. And then there were some other lesser yoga teachers that Yogi Bhajan studied under. The point is that these Yogi Bhajan mantras and kriyas are not ancient. They're made up. And we'll get to this later, but just briefly, the question in my mind is, how can you really trust them? And if they're just maybe 40 years old or something, how do you know that they're not going to have long-term damaging effects, this Kundalini Yoga? We'll talk more about that later. Okay, so they talk about in this Wacko World of Yogi Bhajan more about how they were brought to Indira Gandhi and to the ashram of this Brahmacharya and Shivananda ashram, and how the older original students were really impressed by Yogi Bhajan's connections, if you will. Okay, so then Ekongkaar goes on to say, talking about how Gurbani will show us the way to this practice, Yogi Bhajan's yoga. And she says, if you meditate on the Shabad Raj Yog Takatadian Guru Ram Das, then it will help you connect. All right, so let's look at this Shabad and take it piece by piece and really see if it's talking about, as Ekongkaar postulates, that it's talking about yoga asanas and Yogi Bhajan Kundalini Yoga. So I've talked about this a lot, how it's a misinterpretation or mistranslation of Gurbani to associate this Shabad, Raj Yog Takatatian Guru Ram Das, that to the idea that it has anything to do with Yogi Bhajan's Tantric or Kundalini Yoga. Okay. Well, let me just read some of these comments here from Sikhs who are knowledgeable about this. Okay, so all right. This Singh who comments here is, I think, very knowledgeable about it, and he's given me some new insights on this too, on this Raj Yoga. Another aspect of Raj Yoga is that 3 previous gurus didn't accept Maya. Siddhi Guru Ram Das Ji Maharaj created the concept of Guru's Golak. This centralized management system came to known as Raj Yoga, because at that particular time, Mughals had banned independent royalty system. It was a direct challenge to the Mughals, which led to sacrifice of Siddhi Arjan Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj and creation of fully fledged Raj Yoga of Siddhi Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji Maharaj. 3HO, using just few words to describe a whole new concept, Raj Kundalini Yoga, Raj Yoga Kundalini, is plain silly. This is failing at every step, he says. Quite often, the Mahakal Jethadar of Buddha Dal is referred as Raja Yogi. To understand this term, one has to live with the Dal Panth. How Jethadars are considered as Raja Yogi. The yoga is not Kundalini Yoga. This yoga is described on 211 idea that the Sikh gurus, Guru Ram Das Ji, was a temporal and spiritual sovereignty, not having to do, this Raj yoga was not having to do with Kundalini yoga or yoga asanas. It's just completely nonsense. But the Yogi Bhajan people point to this Shabad as something from Gurbani that they say Guru Ram Das was the king or Raja of yoga asanas or Kundalini yoga. It's just nonsense, and it's mistranslation. Okay, so this Shabad says, a Gurmukh enjoys Raj Yoga when Guru eradicates Gurmukh's Ankar. This Gurmukh enjoys the Amrit Ras of Nama. We see the same in Dal Panth every day. The Mahakal Jathadar, even though he is considered Patrashaji, still looks after the horses, does the chores of an ordinary Singh of Dal Panth. All right, so then this Singh, traditional Sikh, explains the actual lineage of the Sikh gurus, and talks about the true deserving candidate for guruship was Guru Amar Das Ji, and then so this Raj Yog Takat refers to passing of guruship by Siddhi Guru Amar Das Ji to Sri Guru Ram Das Ji. So it's a spiritual, temporal and spiritual throne. Doesn't have anything to do with Kundalini yoga. Let's look at some other evidence as well. Now, I mentioned Dr. Trilochan Singh before. Again, he's a very well-known Sikh historian and scholar. He talks about, as he calls it, Yogi Bhajan's claptrap theories of Kundalini yoga. Now, Premkakar was one of the lead top students of Yogi Bhajan until about 1980, the early 80s, when she had a falling out with him. But she would do a lot of the writing and transliteration, if you will, of Gurbani. And so Dr. Trilochan Singh has picked up on some of these mistranslations of Premkakar. He says here, Premkakar has taken illegal steps to attribute Manmohan Singh her own translation with a motive that is quite clear. The complete text and translation of the verse states, this is referring to another paragraph. Anyway, so, okay, so first it was Nanak Chand who brought to the world light and wisdom, and then he gave his sovereign powers and wealth to Angad, and gave them to Amar Das, who gave this throne, Gati or Raja Yoga, Midi Piti, to Guru Ram Das. Okay, so again, it's a spiritual throne, not this Raj Yoga idea. Okay, so he points to Premkakar's distorted version, and it says, O Guru Arjan, thou knowest the essence of Raja Yoga. That's how Premkakar distorts the version. And then Manmohan Singh's correct version says, Kali the Bard, thou, O Guru Arjan Dev, knowest the relish of both the secular and spiritual sovereignties. That's how the Raj Yoga is interpreted there. So, Dr. Trilochan Singh goes on to say in his comments, he says, God alone knows what will happen to Manmohan Singh's translation of the Adi Guru Granth if Premkakar and other 3HO writers misuse and mishandle it as they have done here. These very bard poets have made it clear that this Raj Yoga is Midi Piti in Persian, and it is the well-known doctrine of political and spiritual sovereignty. Guru Nanak and his successors were all called true kings such as Patasha, and for the whole of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, the Sikhs paid their loyalty only to this concept. So, before his assertion, Guru Ram Das gave the throne and the umbrella of sovereignty of the whole world to Guru Arjan. Gave the throne and the umbrella of sovereignty of the whole world to Guru Arjan. Okay. All right. So then, Thus the word Raj Yoga are two different words having the same meaning, as Miti, political authority, and Piti, spiritual authority. In the first verse, Raj Yoga Takatadian Guru Ram Das, both the J of Raj and G of Yoga in Punjabi have orthographic marks called Anka, which is put below these letters. These are grammatical indications of the fact that they are both nouns and separate words. It has nothing to do with Raja Yoga of the yogic cults, which are in no way related to the thrones or umbrellas of sovereignty. Okay, so there you have it. And then another Singh goes on to ask Ekongkaar in this, please enlighten me on the part where you say Siddhi Guru Nanak Dev Ji was a yogi. Yogi is the one who earns yoga, needs to earn yoga. The one who needs salvation from kal, moksha, and mukti are two different things. A person worshipping Shiv through his Tantra shall be liberated to Shiv Puri. Why does Siddhi Guru Nanak Dev Ji needs to be a yogi? So this is the idea that these yoga asanas are a reverence or worship of Shiva. And so Guru Nanak had nothing to do with worshiping Shiva and attaining this Shiv Puri. It's just ridiculous. And then this thing goes on to say, please provide historical reference where you can prove Siddhi Guru Nanak Dev Ji trained Siri Chand in yoga. Of course, she can't. Okay, now here's an important post here from Ekongkaar, a comment, I should say. First, the Singh asks, Baba versus Singh from Gobind Sadhan clearly rejected Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga. And then Ekongkaar Khalsa says, yes, I'm aware of the stories about Baba versus Singh, thank you. I think different people with different agendas are looking from the outside in, trying to define or dismiss or control something they do not necessarily understand. The teachings of Yogi Bhajan include over 6,000 lectures on topics ranging from yoga to Sikh Dharma to relationships, business, communication, with thousands of kriyas and meditations that work, she says. Now, this is, again, a very elitist, arrogant attitude, I think, that Ekongkaar Khalsa has. And it's really not her fault. I mean, this is the way Yogi Bhajan was, too. So she's just picking up on what Yogi Bhajan said. She's diverting his question about Baba versus Singh rejecting Yogi Bhajan, and then puts this stuff out there about thousands and millions of lectures and communications from Yogi Bhajan. Well, Yogi Bhajan talked a lot of psychobabble. I knew he could just talk a blue streak. He's always talking. And she says, these meditations work, that are effective. Study it if you want. Don't if you don't. No one is obligated to take part. This group is for people who teach it. There is a golden chain of teachers, and the miracle of Guru Ram Das is the guarantor. So she's getting really defensive there, you can tell. Again, let's look a little bit at this idea that Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga works. I really have questions about that. And I want to read for you just part of an article that was published, Kundalini Yoga. It says, just a harmless physical exercise. Now, we talked about this earlier, that Yogi Bhajan clearly made up this Kundalini Yoga and Tantric Yoga. He created a lot of false people, created this false history, tried to tie it in with Sikhi and the Sikh gurus in order to give it credibility, basically. So, let's assume that he didn't have any credibility, which I think that's the more likely assumption you can make here. From all of the evidence and everything, it's pretty clear to me that Yogi Bhajan made this up, this stuff made up. And so the argument is that Kundalini Yoga teachers and students and people like Ekongkaar Khalsa, they say, well, it works. Okay, it works, and it is very effective in many different ways. My question is, how can something be effective if you don't really know for sure the lineage of it? You know, these things, these yogas, these Kundalini yogis, studied these things for thousands of years, the Hatha yoga and all these things, Patanjali and all this kind of stuff. Yoga asanas are pretty new. They're only maybe, I don't know, a few hundred years old. But Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini yoga is 40 years old. So we really don't know the long-term effects of Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini yoga. And there's already been people that have come out, noted teachers that have come out against it, saying it's kind of dangerous with this breath of fire and this getting all charged up. You know, I experienced this too. And, you know, we don't really know the long-term effects of it. So there's a good article. I'll put a link to it here. It says here, people are seeing a greater feeling of well-being and happiness and all of that. But it says here, yoga is an ancient Hindu occult spiritual discipline that can be traced back to the Indo-European people who lived in India, blah, blah, blah. And then those unaware of the spiritual nature of yoga, however, have often been subtly initiated into Eastern occult mysticism. Over a period of time, their worldview begins to change, and gradually a different view of who God is begins to emerge. As former Indian guru Ranbir MAHARAJ explained, there is no Hinduism without yoga, and there is no yoga without Hinduism. So it's really tied in, Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini yoga, with Hinduism. And, you know, I guess if you're into Hinduism, then it might be a good thing for you. But it's certainly not part of Sikhi. So Kundalini yoga means coiled or serpent and represents divine psychic energy called serpent power. It is seen in the form of a coiled female snake. It says here, the body and hand positions, asanas, and mudras performed during yoga also have significance behind them. The chanting of mantras, breathing techniques, deep concentration, and meditation in Kundalini yoga brings one into an altered state of consciousness. This is a form of self-hypnosis, the roots of which lie in the occult. So, this person writing this article says, the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis lists over 50 possible dangers from hypnosis in their American Journal of Clinical Hypnosis. It's no coincidence that many listed are the same risks yoga instructors warn about. Dangers of these practices include severe headaches, depression, uncontrolled weeping or laughter, spasmodic jerking, feelings of intense heat or cold, electricity passing through the body, and itching or crawling sensations, memory impairment, hallucinations, identity crisis, mental illness, insanity, suicidal thoughts, suicide anxiety, panic attacks, heart palpitations, heart attack, and death. On the other hand, one may experience intense feelings of beautiful oneness with the universe, infinite love, and ecstatic bliss. In his book, The Awakening of Kundalini, Gopi Krishna warned that prana, energy of life force, can lead to blissful experiences, but if it isn't properly attuned, can lead to feelings of fear, depression, anxiety, and even horrors of madness. He attributes years of unbearable, burning physical pain and mental anguish to the practice of Kundalini yoga and revealed, I have passed through almost all the states of different mediumistic, psychotic, and other types of mind for some time. I was hovering between sanity and insanity. So, and then there's many other accounts of how dangerous Kundalini yoga could be. In fact, Yogi Bhajan even said himself that it was a risk for him to teach it. So you have to really wonder if this 40-year-old practice that Yogi Bhajan made up and really has no credible lineage is really a good thing. You may have some, you know, temporary, maybe even for years you might feel blissful and things like that, but what are the long-term effects? I think with a lot of people, I've observed this psychological or syndrome, if you will, of exhibiting delusions of religious grandeur. There are, later in this video, you'll see how there's a Yogi Bhajan follower who says that she talks with Sri Chand and to Yogi Bhajan, and they have conversations about things. So, you know, sounds pretty weird to me. I don't know if this is something people want to take a chance on. It's a gamble, in my opinion. You know, Yogi Bhajan was really nothing more than a customs officer. He was interested in making money. It was very clear. He came to the United States and saw an opportunity to make up some false story, tied in with a 550-year-old religion, Sikhism, and then began to promote it as an ancient secret science, this Kundalini Yoga. So the question is, you want to take a gamble on something like that, that Yogi Bhajan clearly made up. So let's just read here some from the Wacko World of Yogi Bhajan. I submit that Kundalini Yoga is like an addictive drug which may seem to help people out of their depression and alcohol addictions, but after time it acts in producing mental and physical side effects. Kundalini Yoga practitioners develop psychotic delusions about magic Aquarian age energy. And there's a post here of this Gurmukh Kaur who says she's channeling the energy of Jupiter, beaming down from the stars. These Yogi Bhajan cult followers then fantasize their superheroes leading and liberating all those who do Kundalini Yoga into some kind of new age of enlightenment. In my experience, this is from this Wacko World of Yogi Bhajan. In my experience, the Yogi Bhajan way of smashing everyone into altered states by piling on more and more exercise, meditations, and perhaps a gong meditation leaves people spacey and prone to induction into his cult. That's probably why Yogi Bhajan did it, and why Kundalini Yoga teachers keep on doing it. The heavy breathing, breath of fire, as Yogi Bhajan called it, techniques, loud gong sounds ringing in your ears, and hours of Yogi Bhajan mantra chanting, sometimes in front of his picture, put unsuspecting people into an almost trance-like state, making students more susceptible to induction into the Yogi Bhajan cult. Yogi Bhajan would have us hold our arms up for hours in some kriya he made up. We were so exhausted after several hours that we'd believe or accept anything Yogi Bhajan said. Yesterday I was talking with a UK medical doctor about Kundalini Yoga and its effects on the human body. The doctor explained how any exercise will make you feel happy with a sense of well-being because endorphins, namely adrenaline and noradrenaline, are released by the brain during heavy exercise. Doctors call these happy hormones. When Kundalini Yoga practitioners say they experience an exalted sense of well-being, they are merely feeling the effects of these happy hormones, which are released by the brain after running or any other heavy exercise. All right, so we've done a lot of discussion here and spent at least over an hour discussing how Yogi Bhajan and his Tantric Kundalini Yogis have twisted Sikhi, and they have twisted the Sikh history and made up a false Sikh history in order to fit their Tantric Kundalini Yoga agenda. I think we've pretty much shown how the false lineage that Yogi Bhajan created is only there to make them money to get more customers in. And their only real argument is, that I can see, Ekongkaar Khalsa and these other Kundalini Yogis, is that they say the yoga works. Well, you know, I guess you have to decide for yourself if it works by looking at past experiences that other people have, which you can read about at this Wacko World of Yogi Bhajan, former followers who have actually left, and then talking to other people that are current followers, and then looking at the history of Kundalini Yoga and how it can be damaging. So do your research. I think it's very important, because if you get into this thing, bad space. I mean, I was with this group for 30 years, and it was a real eye-opener when I started reading this book by Dr. Shalochan Singh. I did all these Kriyas and Tantric Yogi. I probably went to, I'd say, at least 30 or 40, maybe more, maybe 50 of these Tantric Yoga courses that Yogi Bhajan taught. And I can absolutely say that it didn't help me. And it may have had some damaging effects. I don't know, but I really am feeling blessed that I found Sikhi in its true and traditional form. I feel much better for that, and it's definitely much more peace of mind that I have since I've become what I would call a traditional Sikh. So if you have any questions, or you would like to add anything to this video, comments, or you would like to join this group, this Kundalini Yoga teachers group, and enter into the discussion, just write me. I'll put a link to that Facebook group in the description to this video. Well, thank you for your time, and I welcome any of your comments and your input. Waheguਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.